I did not begin as a saint. I began as a divided man, ambitious, brilliant, hungry, ashamed, and unable to command what I loved. My restlessness was not merely intellectual. It was erotic, social, spiritual, and moral. I could analyze myself brilliantly and still fail to change. The mind can describe its chains with elegance, while the will remains bound. I could want truth and still want admiration more. That division was not a minor flaw. It was the shape of my captivity. I wanted eloquence because eloquence could lift me above others. Words became a ladder, and I climbed without asking what kind of soul was climbing. In rhetoric, I learned the intoxicating power of applause. A well-turned sentence can make falsehood feel dignified. I became skilled at moving audiences before I understood what should move a human life. The danger of eloquence is that it can imitate conviction. A crowd may applaud the music of a sentence, while the speaker avoids the truth inside it.
I chased pleasure, and then judged myself for chasing it. The problem was not that I loved, it was that my loves were disordered. Disordered love means loving a real good in the wrong proportion. Pleasure, praise, friendship, knowledge, each can be good, yet each can become tyrannical when treated as ultimate. The soul suffers when lesser things are asked to carry infinite hunger. I stole small things for the pleasure of transgression, and later understood that the act revealed a deeper sickness. The will can love its own disorder. I moved through philosophies and sects, looking for a system that could explain evil, beauty, mind, and my own helplessness. I was drawn to systems that explained evil without implicating my will. It is comforting to imagine darkness as something alien, rather than something we cooperate with. But responsibility kept returning, patient and unwelcome. I wanted evil explained as a substance or system, something I could analyze from a distance. But the more I searched, the more my own desires entered the evidence.
When I turned inward, I found memory vast as a hidden country. I was not transparent to myself. The soul had depths I could not master. Memory revealed that I was larger and stranger than immediate consciousness. Forgotten things could return and govern me. Childhood, grief, language, images, and habits lived within me. To seek truth, I had to enter this interior vastness. Memory humbled me because it showed that the self is not a simple room with one lamp. It is corridors, echoes, locked doors, and gifts we did not create. In a garden in Milan, the conflict broke open. I heard a command to take and read, and the will I could not heal by force began to yield. The garden moment was not theatrical triumph. It was surrender after exhaustion. I had tried to command myself and failed. Grace arrived not as an argument won, but as the possibility of willing what I could not make myself will. The command to read did not erase struggle forever. It opened a door. Conversion begins decisively, but the reordered life must still be learned step by step. To confess was not merely to list failures. It was to tell the truth before God, before others, and before the divided self. Confession turns the self into truthful speech. It refuses both self-flattery and despair. By narrating my life, I discovered that a human being is not only what he has done, but what he is being transformed toward. I wrote to praise, to remember, to repent, and to understand.
The story of a life becomes different when it is no longer told for self-defense. Ask not only what you believe, but what you love. A life changes when love is reordered toward what can finally bear its weight. My question for you is simple and difficult. What is the order of your loves? Follow your attention, your envy, your fear, your joy. There you will find the altar around which your life is already arranged. Restlessness is not solved by distraction. It is interpreted by asking what infinite hunger is trying to eat through finite things.